Greetings. Welcome to the SciFi Pubcast, the podcast that tries to be a pub and perhaps someday a pub that tries to be a podcast. As always, we are looking for customers to come visit our bar. If you are passionate about something and you want to be on a podcast, then let us know because this bar is all about community. If you want to help us out, please consider leaving a 5-star review wherever you find the show and subscribing to our YouTube channel. I'm Joel. I'm the owner of the SciFi Pubcast, so to speak. And today I'm looking around the bar and I'm seeing our regular staff members, Keri Simpson and Derek Beebe. Hi, guys.
Hi. Hey, guys.
Hey, we're back. It's been like almost 2 months or 6 weeks. Sorry, I was on the Star Trek cruise. I was on a road trip to Florida. I went to Disney again. I'm a jerk. I'm an asshole.
You're working on your dissertation. It's all good. We understand.
Oh, God, I need a shot of whiskey right now because you just mentioned the word dissertation. But let's move beyond that. Because,
was I not supposed to mention that? No one told me I wasn't supposed to mention that.
It's all right. I'm the one who signed up for this stuff, and I'm just doing my best that I can. So it's been a very, very eye-opening learning experience. I can tell you that. Mm-hmm. I know so little. Okay. Oh, dear Lord. That's Keri. Keri, how's your day and how's life in Southern California? Any earthquakes? Any tsunamis? Any taxes? I don't know. Tell us on everything.
No earthquakes, no tsunamis yet, although, that could happen at any time. It is a bit cold and rainy. So, yeah, I'm totally debunking the myth that it never rains in LA because it's raining right now. But and then next month, the reason why we're recording this weekend instead of next month is because my seminar schedule is kicking into high gear next month. I have like 3 seminars to go to, so I'm going to be spending a lot of time getting thrown around a room next month, and it's going to be fabulous.
Excellent. It's great when we do martial arts and stuff like that. I do fencing, but quite honestly, I've been sucking the last couple months. I've been showing up because I've been injured. Don't get old, folks. That's what I'm saying. My bones, my joints, you name it. I'm struggling, but I'm still alive. Excellent. And what else? So who else we have? Oh yeah, this Derek fellow. Yeah, he might be important for this episode. I don't know.
I've never heard of this fellow before. Why is he here? Why is he here, Joel?
I think you keep memory holing me, but I keep coming back.
Yeah, that must be it.
Like a fungus or something.
I'm just a PTSD guy, man, with lots of trauma in my life, and Derek, it just adds to it, man. It's all good. All right, Derek Beebe, what's happening in Pennsylvania?
Actually, just like LA, it is cold and raining all day here, so it's like we're in the same spot.
Huh.
That goes it, and the weather's not very good in Southern Ontario, or at least Southwestern Ontario. It's been icky. It's been an icky March since I got back from Florida. Oh, wow. So, Derek, anything new in your life you want to talk about?
No, hold that thought. Yeah.
Hold that thought. We'll talk about that a bit later. But of course, we're a pub, and as someone who owns a pub, I care about my customers and my staff, right? The interactions, the sense of community, sense of being important to our existence, where we find meaning in life by social interaction. This is what I'm talking about right now. I'm talking about the village, right? The tribe we all belong to, okay? So when I say this, and plus, we live in a capitalist society, so I have to ask you about my whole business stuff, right? Since you're in charge of the kitchen, how is our kitchen doing?
If you care about your customers so much, why do you let me make the food?
Because I'm a bad business owner, okay? bad business owner. But how is our kitchen doing?
Well, today I am serving humble pie because I'm very grateful that you're giving me an episode in which to talk about my book that just released on Wednesday.
Yes.
Oh, look, he's got a copy.
Oh, look, there's a copy right there.
Yes.
I don't have a physical copy. I only have.
Me neither.
I downloaded a sample. It's on my Kindle. I got through. I actually did manage to start last night. I got through a little more than a chapter before the jazz gummy kicked in. So right. And I fell asleep. So, but it was something, had nothing to do with your book. It's just that THC makes me sleepy.
Fair enough. It's funny because when I order books off of Amazon, it's printed in Bolton, Ontario, which is about an hour outside of the Greater Toronto area. So this is actually printed maybe an hour and a half away. So this is like literally, Derek, you mentioned that, it arrived quickly. It's actually arrived yesterday. I just didn't pick it up and post the photos online, which I did this morning. So there's that.
Cool.
So I get these books within like 12, 14 hours, which is amazing.
You actually got a physical copy before I ever did.
Yeah, and it feels so good. And talking THC doesn't compare to new print paper. I'm telling you right now.
Okay, Joel, that's just weird. Why are you I mean, okay,
hey, I'm very
really
complimented that Joel likes to sniff my book over and over.
I really shouldn't talk. I do also like the smell of old paper, so and books. So yeah, but
Yeah,
it's funny because I don't partake the whole cannabis business just because my background and the alcohol is enough for me. But that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
But before we start the interview with Derek, because he's in the hot seat for this episode, my updates. I'm drowning with dissertations, comments, and I'm way behind because my PhD supervisor, is a friend of ours, and you may know him, Renner Graham. He's a very intelligent man. He is. He's asking a lot of very difficult questions, and I'm learning a lot, and I'm struggling, but that's the point of a PhD. And such is life. And I've signed up for this, so I'm going to carry on. And I saw Reynolds. I spent some quality time with him down in Florida. Yes, because we were both on the ship for the Star Trek cruise.
Yes, I saw some pictures.
Yes.
Although I didn't see a whole lot of pictures of you together. I saw the picture he posted of you while you were both at the sushi making thing with Saniqua, but
Right.
that's about as much as I could get verification that you actually saw each other on the cruise.
We spent some time walking through, I believe, Curacao, the port, before we went back to the ship, and I went exploring because I do that. Reynolds is a friend of mine, and I don't want to bother him over, work stuff. And he does his own thing. I do my own thing. I had my brother Sean with me for this cruise, which is amazing. So Sean had a great time, I think. First time he was ever been on a cruise ship or a resort type environment, and it blew his mind, I think. And the access to the talent, to the Star Trek actors and industry folks, I think, is just night and day above the certain like conventions where you have to stand in line, because there was very few lineups ever on a cruise ship. But you pay for it, and that's one of the reasons I probably won't be going back next year, because it's just so expensive. It's kind of like once or twice in your life to experience it, and go back to work. Oh, win the lottery or marry rich, and I'm still
your most memorable celebrity encounter?
Good question. There's a few, and I don't want to out anyone, but it's like when someone steps into an elevator and you look at them going, hey, and they do the whole, how was your day? Is like, I just took a 20-minute nap. How was your day? It's like, oh God. And the fact of the matter is that for the actors, a lot of it's still working, and it's a bit of play, but they're still working and they're tired, right? And they have to dial up all the time. And as someone who's just a fan, you can sleep in. You can get completely shit-faced drunk. You can do anything in between. It doesn't matter. But if you're actually on this cruise, being paid to be on the cruise and doing what you do as a celebrity or an actor, it's different.
I would think it would be exhausting, because you just constantly have people coming up to you and having to interact with them in a gracious, professional manner.
Yeah, exactly. And they can hide in the cabins, but a cabin on a cruise ship, if you don't have a balcony looking out over the sea, it's not great. and so, you really have to dial up for any time when you're awake, right? And it's like, I feel for these folks, because you're dealing with fandom, and Star Trek fandom is very tolerant in most cases, but it's fandom. So you get a lot of, varying differences of personalities and just social interactionness, or just being awkward, and but they do a great job, and I love that. And if I can find a way to go back next year, I will go. But that, and then the Star Wars Celebration in Japan in April of 2025. Tickets go on sale. Probably not. Probably not. It's just so expensive, right? Not just the flight, it's the hotels, it's the fact that it's Japan, so everything costs more. But it's Tokyo too, right? So in other words, you don't have to travel through the country. You're basically in the major city center. The Oz contains Disneyland for Japan, as well as Disney Sea, which is on my bucket list. So I'm probably still out.
Isn't there also like Studio Ghibli World, or is that somewhere else in
which
Japan?
One?
Studio Ghibli World.
I don't know anything about that. Tell me about that.
Miyazaki.
I'm not a manga guy. So I'm sorry.
Princess Mononoke, Castle in the Sky.
Ghibli Park. Ghibli Park.
Okay.
It's in Tokyo.
No. There's so many cool things to do in Japan. My dad went maybe 10 years before he died. He loved Japan. And I was on an organized tour with a bunch of other things, but he loved Japan. So it's still on my to-do list.
We had my dojo had a trip that we were planning for 2020 in the fall, but then the pandemic happened and that kind of got sidelined. And at some point, I think my teacher wants to take a bunch of us over to Japan, and so we could train at the World Aikido World headquarters.
Yeah. With me, I want to check out Disney. I want to check out the Star Wars Celebration if that's possible. Plus, also, there's the Shinto shrines, which is cool. I want to go to Hiroshima, just to pay my respects, all that good stuff, right? I'm a history guy, and there's a lot of history in Japan. What else? So before I did the cruise, I saw 3 rocket launches out of the Space Coast, so Cape Canaveral, which is amazing. Including one night launch, which I had to go down 2 nights to catch. But it went up the second night. It was amazing. It's all SpaceX Falcon 9 rockets. But seeing a launch during the nighttime, when you see the different colors on the night sky, oh my God. Like, this is basically, it's like Star Wars and Star Trek combined. It's like, oh my God. For me, as a space geek, right? Real space geek, it's like, oh my God. And then, of course, the next day, I'm in Cape Canaveral. I'm at the Tiki Bar at the very end of the pier in Cocoa Beach, because I like Cocoa Beach. Long history with the astronaut corps. And I'm sitting there, and oh my God, the United States Space Forces launching a spy satellite. And it went up at like 4:30 in the afternoon, and we saw it from the Tiki Bar at the end of the pier. And we actually saw the first stage booster land again from a distance, and it was amazing.
Oh, that's cool.
And then a couple of days pass. Now, Rena gets into town. My brother Sean gets into town. A few other mutual friends get into town, like Thomas and Trisha gets into town. And we were all at the Kennedy Space Center at the same time. And there was a third lunch. So we went down to Banana Creek, where the Apollo building is, and we actually observed a third lunch happen. So Rena Graham saw a rocket launch for the first time in his life.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. Congratulations, Randall.
Yeah, so there's that.
When I was a kid in the 80s and 90s, I grew up in St. Pete, Florida, and we could actually see the shuttle launches. I mean, it was very tiny, but, right. Even though we were on the other side of the peninsula, we could actually see the little, like, white plume of smoke as the shuttle went up.
Oh, wow. I'm still trying to figure out how I can move down to Florida and live there and still have health insurance. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's been a problem for me for years, because I would go in a heartbeat, because I hate the Canadian winters nowadays, especially at my age. And I lived out in Western Canada for a bit, so my body has felt it, just the same.
Yeah, well, I'm not going anywhere near Florida for a while, so.
Yeah, I don't want to do anything before November or January, if you know what I mean. So we'll see what happens.
Well, I don't even trust that Florida will be hospitable to me after November. Regardless of what happens.
It's a weird state politically. It really is. And it's very much broken into 3 different regions. I'm talking about Central Florida or so, but even the Space Coast could be very right-leaning, right? But it is the States, right? So, yeah. Any which way, we're not here to talk about politics. We're not here certainly to talk about me. We're here because we're talking about this just released novel entitled The Secret Apprentice by the author. What is it again? Derek Beebe. Is it right?
Yes.
Does that?
Yeah. Who writes these
that's
intros?
Oh,
Yeah,
you.
I need a drink. Okay, wait a second. I had it, but late. I ran across to this book at the Western University, and it's open house day at the campus. Everything's busy, and I'm still in the university Wi-Fi. Any which way, I had a drink, and my God, I actually have a physical copy of Derek Beebe's new published book. So today is all about Derek, man. How do you feel?
I'm excited to finally have it out. I've been working on getting it published for almost an entire year now. I mean, obviously the book was, I first came up with the book back in 2001, and then I wrote it in 2006. And I've spent the last year editing and dealing with marketing and cover artists and reading books about how to do Amazon advertising. So it's been a lot of work and a lot of delays, but the day is finally here. The book is out there. You can buy it.
Yay.
Right. And the link will be in our show notes to the Amazon link. Is it only on Amazon or is it elsewhere?
It is Amazon exclusive. You can, if you're part of the Kindle Unlimited program, you can read it for free on that. You can get it as an ebook and you can get it as a paperback like Joel has.
Yeah, so amazing. And Amazon prints it locally, so you get the hard copy quite quickly if you order the hard copy. So, I don't know where to begin, Derek. So tell me about your mother. No, I mean, okay, first thing, let's do this way, okay? Derek, tell us about the specific book entitled The Secret Apprentice.
Okay, well, you mentioned Randall before, so we could start out with Randall's endorsement of the book. He said, "A wild romp in the best traditions of fantasy fiction, action, adventure, and plenty of exciting surprises. I've read it twice before it was even published. Derek is a welcome new voice in fantasy fiction, and I genuinely look forward to seeing more of his output in the future. Randall Graham, author of Before Life."
Randall can be wrong, just saying. Speaking as his PhD student, he can be wrong, but I don't think he's wrong in this case. Good on him.
Wait, Joel, are you allowed to say that Randall could be wrong while he's still your boss?
He's probably not listening to this because he's a busy man, but so I can get away with it. But no. This was a bit pushback, but no, I respect Randall a lot. He's much smarter than I am, and quite frankly, I'm from a personal level, I'm very happy I brought you guys together, and that's over the years that we've been doing this podcast, that we can help each other out, and that Randall has helped you with your copy and then endorsed your book afterwards with it. What's called testimonial?
Blurb endorsement. He actually he read the book a year or so ago, and he gave very detailed, insightful notes for me that were incredibly helpful. So the book is far better now than it was before Randall read it and gave me the notes. So I'm deeply thankful to him for that help, because he's a busy guy. He's important, and he took the time.
Yeah, I'm getting there myself in my dissertation. So I'm coming around to the way Reynolds actually approaches his language and his publications. So
he had really great notes and really great ideas that I was able to make. They were very easy fixes to make, but they greatly improved the book overall.
Well, thanks, Randall.
Yeah, thank you, Randall.
Yeah.
Also, since we're thanking people, hey man, thank you for mentioning the SciFi Pubcast and your the back the description of your novel. You actually mentioned the podcast, and I just found out this morning. I'm sorry, but I didn't catch it because it wasn't on the Amazon, right? And I just picked up the book this morning and said, "Oh my God, you mentioned my podcast." To me, it's like this is why I started this podcast, right? For these little connections and little, sense of community and all this stuff, and talking about our passions for literature and for storytelling. And man, just thank you, man. I really appreciate that.
The rising tide lifts all boats.
Absolutely, amazing. So tell us about your mother. No, I mean, okay. So let's break down. So this is a young adult fantasy novel.
Yep. So think Lord of the Rings, Avatar: The Last Airbender. If you're familiar with Brandon Sanderson, the Mistborn trilogy, things like that.
Right.
Aragon.
Is this a standalone book or is it part of a series?
This is the first book of a series, and all three. Well, there's 6 in total, but there's a trilogy, and then there's another trilogy. So the first 3 books form a very part 1, part 2, part 3 concise trilogy, and I will be releasing those a month apart. So a month from now will be book 2, a month after that book 3, and then after that I'll see if anybody buys them before I start spending the money on 4, 5, and 6. Now I've already written all but the ending of 6, which I'm in the middle of doing. So 1 through 5 are already written and finished, and then 6 is about 80% finished right now. And so it's a young adult epic fantasy. It's not grim dark. It's got a very healthy sense of humor, as you could guess from my personality. It certainly goes to dark epic places. It's about a big war for the fate of the world. But I always try to put as much humor and dumb jokes in as I possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's the first one's a trilogy, and it's in the vein of Lord of the Rings. It basically started as my version of Lord of the Rings. It all started in 2001 when I went and saw The Fellowship of the Ring in theater, and I was blown away. I loved it. I've read the books over and over again as a kid. So seeing them on screen for the first time was such a magical experience. Gandalf was always such a near and dear character in my heart, and Ian McKellen played him so perfectly on screen. I can still remember sitting in the theater and seeing Gandalf show up in the wagon for the first time, and everything about him and the performance just being so utterly perfect. It was so magical to see that. And after I got home from seeing the movie in the theater, my mind was racing with thoughts about Lord of the Rings, and I started rereading the book again for the 20th time in the row. And as I was reading it, my thoughts were kind of drifting to, what would it be like if I made my version of Lord of the Rings? And I remember the first thought I had was, what if Gandalf could fly? That would be cool and different, because I always kind of put a comic book sensibility into everything I do. Like, my characters tend to have superpowers. They can usually fly, have super strength, that kind of thing. So my first thought was, well, what if Gandalf could fly? And then the second thought would be like, well, he could just fly the ring straight over to Mount Doom. I'm not going to get into the whole debate with the Eagles, because there's a reason they don't do that. But my second thought was, well, if Gandalf could fly, he could just fly right over to the bad guy and, take this all home in a moment's notice. So then my third thought was, what if he chose not to do that? And that's where the genesis of the story started coming, because in the story there are these powerful wizards, and they can fly. And there's an evil sorcerer that they need to have defeated, but they refuse to fight, because in the backstory, the evil sorcerer killed one of them, and now they're afraid of getting killed themselves, so they refuse to help, and they're just basically looking to find, other people with powers to go do the battle for them. So that's kind of like what the premise is. They're searching the land to find this prophesized savior who's going to be able to defeat the evil sorcerer, and it turns out to be our main character, Goodwin, who's a bit of an idiot. He's a street urchin living on the streets, but he is strangely idealistic and trusting in the authority of the king and the wizards and all that sort of thing, even though he lives a horrible life. And it's really the inequities are perpetuated by the king and the system and the wizards, but he still has this blind faith in them. And he gets picked to be the savior who's going to go off to kill the evil sorcerer. And along his way, it's kind of like the Heart of Darkness. He gets sent on this mission upriver to kill the renegade general, and he starts questioning the way of the world and, whether he's fighting for the right side or not. So that by the time he finally meets Anudula, who is the antagonist, it'll be a question of whether he's going to try to kill her or join her, because it is a woman. They tell everybody that it's a man who killed the wizard because obviously they're misogynists. And they don't want to admit that a woman did it.
Let me just interrupt there. So by joining this woman, what do you mean by that?
Well, Anudula is in the neighboring country, and she's leading them in a threatened invasion of the kingdom. Oh, is that a joke? Did I miss something?
Forget it. It went over your head. Just say that. Let's go.
Was it something sexual? Because I have a very innocent mind, Joel. I don't get those kind of things.
Okay. Go on.
But yeah, so basically this neighboring country is on the verge of invading their kingdom, and that's why they have to assassinate the evil sorcerer Nudula. And so once they get Goodwin picked as the prophesized one, who's the only one that can kill her, they send him off with a little bit of training and some other colorful companions to go and kill her. But as he goes along, he starts getting exposed to the real world, and he starts realizing like, oh, maybe this isn't what I thought it was. So then we have a moral question at the end of who he's going to side with. And along the way, we have lots of big epic action adventure, lots of humor. There's lots of really cool big set pieces. My favorite one is when they come across a gigantic 10-story tall frozen giant. That's a really cool sequence.
Nice. Is there any bars or taverns?
They do go into bars and taverns, although I'm sad to say it's not a central part of the story. It's more like they just have to pick a tavern for the night to sleep in.
See, that's the problem. I've been trying to rack my head for years now how to do a novel based out of a bar, right? But it's a setting, and a setting doesn't drive the story. Characters drive the story. So I have to think about that in terms of writing. Yeah.
Actually, now that you mention it, there is one protracted sequence that takes place in a bar. It's the night before they leave on the journey. And like they're getting Goodwin drunk because he's never really been drunk before because he's a poor kid living on the streets. And then the three different archers are like having a darts contest where they just keep hitting the same dart and splitting it down the middle over and over again because they all have supernatural abilities.
Mm-hmm. Keri, you have any questions?
So they cheat, is what you're saying?
Well, it's not cheating if that's your natural native ability. They were born that way.
Sure. Because, that happens.
Yeah, because in this world, this is a very fantastical world. There's all sorts of crazy animals and beasts. There's dragons. There's giant dragons. Like I said, there's this one 10-story tall giant. There's sea monsters. And some of the human characters are called champions. They're born with supernatural abilities. They're basically mutants. Like each of them has like a different power. The baseline is that you're super strong, but other people have different abilities. Like I said, there's 3 different people who kind of have supernatural archer abilities, kind of like a Legolas sort of thing. Oh, my favorite character is Pylo. He's an immortal thief who can survive any injury. So you can splatter him into a puddle, you can chop his head off, you can grind him into bits, and he will always reform his body. And he's the comic relief of the story. He's done every crime imaginable, and they hired him to be a guide to get into the enemy country. And there's kind of a question of, whose side is he on? Obviously he's doing it for the money and for a pardon. But, there's always the question of, is he on the side of the angels or not? But he's really funny. He's my favorite character.
Does he want a job at the SciFi Pubcast?
He'd probably steal everything and then be out on his own.
Amazing. Derek, what got you into writing, a long, long time ago in a galaxy very, very close to us?
I've always had an imagination and been writing stories as long as I can remember. I remember even as like a little kid, I had an invisible friend who was a space cowboy, and I had this whole little story about the space cowboys, which was probably some kind of a Star Wars thing. I don't remember it anymore. But I always came up with stories, and I started my science fiction series Terminus when I was 12 years old. Mm-hmm. So I've been working on that one, and that's the next big step. If I get these 6 Dynasty books published, next up is Terminus, which is a 14-book series, which I've written 7 of so far. So that's the end goal. That's my real magnum opus. But Dynasty is the one that's already written, so that's what's going out first. And but I've always been a writer. I've always had an imagination. I've always loved science fiction, fantasy, TV shows, and movies. And then I would start dreaming up my own versions of them and making up my own stories.
So what's your game plan? Are you just trying to recuperate your expenses for these things? So you are trying to make a living out of it? Or like you mentioned that you will publish your sci-fi fiction if you get a return on this fantasy endeavor.
Well, I'm certainly not trying to get rich off of it. That would be nice, of course. But at this point in my life, I just want people to read my stories, because these stories, like I said, I've been writing them since I'm 12 years old, and they really are the purpose of my life, and nobody's read them, and I'm 42 years old now, and I don't want to die without anyone ever having read my stories. So I just want to get them out there. I want to entertain people and, maybe get them to think about things. I mean, really, I don't know if it's the goal of every author, but I guess really ultimately the moral of all my stories is you should be a better person and you should help people, so I'm hoping to entertain people on the surface level and maybe inspire them to be better people on a more deeper level.
That's amazing. That's great.
Yeah.
I gotta ask you, Derek, man. You did this major part of your life for spending a lot of money doing self-publishing, get your stories out so that people can always access it, right? Okay. You just mentioned you just turned 42. So is 42 anything involved with this? In terms of your decision making?
Yes, because that's the meaning of life, the universe, and everything in Hitchhiker's Guide. So there was two different what was it called, numerology, where you kind of like make bullshit out of numbers.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think that's numerology. Yeah.
Yeah. So there were two different big numerology points that made me had to take action finally. Number one was 42, life, the universe, and everything. And number two was 2023 was the 30-year anniversary of me inventing Terminus in 1993. So it was the 30-year anniversary of being a writer, and it was the year 42 for my age. So, it was a sign that it was time to do something.
I just feel bad because I haven't published a book in my life. It's on my to-do list, and you beat me to it, man. Good on you.
Yeah. Well, I actually had other things published with other people. I had the novel It's a Wonderful Death published, and several short stories with Michael Ventrella in his Fortanis series. But those, I mean, obviously It's a Wonderful Death was 90% my original characters and my original setting, but it was still someone else's property. And I also have the one Sherlock Holmes short story, which is still available in Baker Street Irregulars Volume 4. That of all my previous books, that's the only one that you can still buy. Everything else is out of print. So I did a Sherlock Holmes sci-fi story in that. But the things that I really care about are my original stories that I've been writing since I was 12 years old. So Terminus and Dynasty, those are the things that are really near and dear to my heart. And that's what I want people to be able to experience.
Outstanding.
Cool.
Yeah. I've been reading a lot about the NASA Mercury astronauts, and basically one of the phases they used back in the day was first class. That was a first class statement. Let's talk about cover art because I just got a copy of the physical book. There is a redheaded, attractive woman wearing looks like chainmail and a bit of plates, with a sword in her right hand and some sort of magic fireball in her left. Yep. So tell me the process about the cover art and and your thoughts about it, because to me it's striking. Maybe I just like redheaded women, but still it's striking.
That is Anudala, the evil sorcerer that Goodwin is sent to kill, and who he has to decide whether he's going to kill her or join her by the end of the book. And the cover art was actually the worst part of the whole getting prepared to publish process, because I had to go through so many people. I had to look at so many samples, and I got one person, and I thought it looked fine, but then when I showed it to other people after I paid for it, of course, everybody said, oh, that doesn't look good, that looks amateurish. So I had to start all over again, and then I got another person who ghosted me. So it was a very, very long process to find a good artist for a semi-reasonable price, because that cover art cost, I think it was $700, and that's actually a good price.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's the only reason. That's why I say if this sells well, I'll do Terminus, because it costs me $1,500 to $2,000 to publish each book. So I'm certainly not doing this to make money off of it. If I break even, it'll be a miracle. But I would hope to make some of the money back before I keep going on doing the other ones, because it's almost $2,000 a book to put it out, because you can put anything out on Amazon for free and it can be as crappy as you want. But if you want it to look professional, professionally edited, professional cover art, it does cost money.
Okay. Some people go on Star Trek cruises and spend the money. Some other people actually get published books. So what's the right decision? I don't know. Speaking of Amazon, so about 2 weeks ago, I'm on a lot of list servers, so I get a lot of things sent to me, right? Okay. And there was a lawyer, I don't want to say his name, but he published a book about science fiction and the law. And I'm buying anything to do with science fiction and the law. So I spent $40 on his book. And it's the first time in my life, I just thought to myself, I just spent $40 on a book full of nonsense. This is literally a schizophrenic talking about science fiction, mostly science fiction, and the law. And it's all over the map. It has no coherency to it whatsoever. It's not particularly structured well. There's a lot of references every second or third word, and that's about it. And that myself, wow. Okay, this is a mistake. I'm going to keep this book as a memento of how you shouldn't buy stuff off of the internet. If it's even on the point of your dissertation, yeah, you may do some research for it. And the fact is the fellow, he used a fake name. You can pierce that, but this guy's a licensed lawyer, and he's printing out this stuff. And it's just weeks of mental illness to me. It's like, can I make you wrong on that? It's like, oh my God. But I'm not saying that to your book. I think it's great. And trust me, I think nowadays self-publishing, there's no stigma attached to it, because the way corporate publishing has gone into one or two big companies. Yeah, no.
I have an author. Go ahead, Keri.
Well, I was going to say, until you said that that the guy was writing under a pen name, I thought you were talking about someone we both know.
No.
And we're trying not to get in trouble.
No. Listen. Randall, my hat's off. He's my teacher. He's my mentor. I behaved. I didn't drink all that much on the Star Trek cruise. I had a great time. But with Randall, yes. We live in a very difficult economic environment where you don't accept things based on authority. And this is, if I have any pushback against Randall, it's just because that's my default position. I have everything good to say about Randall. He's a friend of mine. I love the man dearly. Okay. The other lawyer who's put this stupid work on Amazon, mind you, not so much. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, $40 for a book is a bit much.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, but I digress. Is there any central theme you're trying to get across in your works, Derek? Besides, we can be better as people.
Yeah, there's one of them that I can't talk about because it's a spoiler for the end of the book. But the main theme or question of the book is the idea that I came up with was, what if we implant our modern day sense of morality, of right and wrong, into a stereotypical medieval setting, with the king and the poor paupers? It's obviously an unjust system, because there's this guy who's in charge of the entire kingdom, and he's living like a king, and everybody else is living in the mud and dirt, and that's completely unfair. And what if somebody back then actually thought, hey, this isn't right, we should lead a rebellion against it, and we should have democracy and equality and gender equality and end to slavery and end to racism and LGBT rights and all that sort of thing. So that's
that's all crazy talk, man. Why are you talking crazy and shit? No, okay, no, that's actually all very, very good points. I'm just being facetious.
Yeah, so that's basically what Anudala, the evil sorcerer, is trying to do. She's trying to bring equality and democracy and gender equality and all that sort of thing to the kingdom, where there's this, evil. I hesitate to say evil, but this rich king who's keeping everyone else living in the dirt while he's living off in this fancy castle. So that's really the moral question of it. And I thought that was an interesting idea, because you see fantasy stories all the time where they don't question that sort of thing. It's just like, he's the king, he's noble and good, or he's like evil, but there's no ambiguity to it. So I always like to have moral ambiguity in all my stories. I like to have sympathetic villains with interesting motivations, and I like to have morally ambiguous heroes who aren't, purely good. And I like to have the question of, who's right, who's wrong. It was also further colored when the Iraq War happened in 2003, because like I said, I started writing this in 2001, and the story didn't fundamentally change its shape. But when the Iraq War happened in 2003, it was a very uncanny parallel to what I had already written. And as I said, Anudala wants to lead a democratic revolution in the kingdom, but that's also the question of she's in a foreign country. She's going to invade this country to implant her sense of morality and right and wrong on them. And that's going to have a death toll. There's going to be a lot of people killed trying to do this. And do we have the moral right to invade another country for its own good, even if we think they're wrong and they treat their people wrong? How many people are going to die in that invasion? How many people are going to die in the occupation afterwards? And are they going to greet you with a parade, or is there going to be an unending insurgency that will just go on for all time? So that's kind of what the central story of the entire trilogy is about. Is Anudala the good guy? And even if she is, are there going to be so many unintended consequences to her trying to do this that, it will be a bad thing?
Yeah, I think that there's shades of Napoleon there, and how he was trying to export the French Revolution across the continent of Europe and Britain as well.
I haven't read about Napoleon since college. Yeah. I barely remember anything anymore. Did anybody see the movie?
Yeah, it wasn't very good at all. I just saw it. But the whole thing with Napoleon is that you want to talk about nationalism on the continent, right? Especially German nationalism. The seeds are with Napoleon and the conquest. Yeah, these things rhyme over historical time periods.
Which I know this is not sci-fi, but that always kind of fascinates me, because in normal times, an Austrian has about as much business running Germany as a Corsican has running France.
Yeah.
And that's just like, wow, like Germans normally don't like Austrians, and yet they elected Hitler, and it's like Napoleon wasn't even French, and he's running. They made him. He became Emperor of France. Like, what the bloody hell happened there?
Yeah, murder. Hey, Derek, man, obviously you hit on a great theme, because this is an evergreen theme. It comes up every so often. So.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I started writing this in late 2001, and then the Iraq War happened, and then all of a sudden the entire thing was a metaphor for the Iraq War, even though I didn't originally intend it that way. And then in the course of the story, I put in lots of little things, like there's a few Dick Cheney quotes in there as they talk about their invasion, and is our belief that we'll be greeted as liberators, things like that.
Oh wow. So what's next? You said that it's gonna be there's a new book every month. The next 3 months?
Yeah, so the first trilogy, the first 3 books, those are all professionally edited already, and I have the cover art for number 2, and I will shortly have the cover art for number 3. So those are going to get released 1 month apart, and I'm going to see if anybody actually buys them, because I'm spending about $6,000 to publish the whole trilogy. So I would like to make some of that money back before I decide to publish more. But if I so, assuming I make enough on that, the next step would be to publish the books 4, 5, 6 of the Dynasty trilogy. And that's a looser trilogy. Obviously, I can't, say what's in it because it'd be a huge spoiler. But the first ones are very much part 1, part 2, part 3, a Lord of the Rings style trilogy about a big epic war. And then the next trilogy is something else that I can't go into. And if those get published, then the next step would be Terminus, my science fiction series. I have 7 of those books written. So basically, I can crap out 12 books in a relatively short period of time if I wanted to. And And then my next mission in life would be to write books 8 through 14 of Terminus. And then after that, I could write the 10-book prequel series to Terminus called Empire. And I have like 5 different series ideas, and most of them are outlined. Obviously, Dynasty is 99% done. Terminus is 50% done. Empire, I only have outlines for it, but I have the entire thing outlined. And there's other series as well that I could go into with time. But yeah, so basically my life goal here is to publish Dynasty and then Terminus. And of course, the insane pie in the sky idea would be to get them made into a streaming series or a TV series or a movie series, because that's what I originally envisioned them as, TVs and movies. And I'm putting them into book form because I want someone to actually experience them.
So if you're not a producer at Netflix or Apple TV or Prime Video, how can people help you right now in your passion?
Well, you can buy the first book and then we can move on from there. It's, like I said, it's free on Kindle Unlimited. So if you're on that program, you can read it for perfectly free. The ebook is normally going to be $2.99. The paperback is normally going to be $11.99. However, for the opening week, I am going to be doing a free book promotion. So I'm going to be doing that from Sunday the 24th through Thursday the 28th. That's the ebook, of course, not the paperback. So you can get the ebook for free from Sunday to Thursday. And what I really need at this point are reviews, because nobody's going to buy a book with no reviews on it. So that's why I'm doing a free book promotion for these first 5 days, because what I really need is for people to leave reviews on it to prove that it's actually a real book that exists, that human beings have read. So the greatest thing anyone can do for me is to leave a review for the book, and you can get the book for free for 5 days.
Awesome. First class.
Wizard.
Okay. Wizard. Yeah. You beat me to it. Great. and Derek, man, we've been doing this podcast for 4.5 years. I know our longtime listeners know your background, but for the folks who's just tuning in right now, what's your credentials? Like, who is Derek Beebe? Not in a philosophical, existential sense, but really in like, where do you grow up? Where do you go to school? What do you do for a living? That type of stuff.
I'll do you one better. Why is Derek Beebe? That's what New York.
Thank you, Drax.
Well, I'm from Florida. I went to school for a history major, and then I realized that was worthless for a job. So then I did a second major in social science education. I did a single semester as a high school history teacher, and I absolutely hated it because it turns out high school kids don't care about ancient history that much. Plot twist. Huh. So I walked away from the teaching, and I just ended up in a boring career in banking. So, it pays the bills, but my real passion has always been writing, science fiction, fantasy, TV, movies, books, video games. So my dream has always been to make these stories and to actually have people experience them.
Cool.
Wizard.
Or wizard.
All right. How about this? Are you doing any press tours or any other podcasts? Are they flying you to New York and Los Angeles to be interviewed at the talk shows? Like, what's up?
That would be nice. I did buy a lotto ticket for the 1.1 billion jackpot. That would certainly help.
Oh yeah.
Well, I did reach out to the podcast that I know. I know that the Saga Continues Star Wars podcast is going to give me a shout out. And on Tuesday, I'm actually going to get to do a cameo on Skywalking Through Neverland, the Disney Star Wars podcast. They're going to have me on and let me talk for a couple of minutes about my book. So that's very cool of them. And I think a couple people are going to give me shout outs, but yeah.
You please listen to these podcasts. Please retweet or repost on social media. Derek, have you updated your blog, or have you had time yet?
Yes, I know I've been very sporadic with updating my website, but for the release of the book, I wrote 14 articles, and I have them all uploaded to come out 1 week apart. So for the next 14 weeks, my website will be updated once a week. And they're all articles about, Secret Apprentice, Dynasty, the books, and all that sort of thing.
Amazing. Yeah. Keri, do you have any questions for Derek?
No, I mean, I think I've asked most of my questions for Derek. Like I said, I'm only about a chapter maybe and a half in, and the paperback is sitting in my Amazon cart, so it's at some point the next time I hit the submit for purchase button, it's gonna be there within like the next week or so. Sorry, I've been drinking a gin and tonic, so alcohol.
Yeah, that's probably my next stop myself. Apparently, there's a huge varsity house party tour happening in London. I just got an email on that. Well, no, not an email, but a message about that. So, yeah, but I should stay home and actually edit and revise. We'll see what happens. Derek, last question, man. It's up to you. Is there anything else you think people of the customers of this podcast, the SciFi Pubcast, or potential buyers of your novels that you want them to know?
Yeah, the most important thing I think is to know that the book is fun and funny, because my problem with a lot of epic fantasy books is that they're so serious and dour and grimdark. And every time I try to sample a new series, it's just very, heavy and dark. And I just think that things should have more sense of fun. I mean, like, Lord of the Rings has a sense of fun. I always look at Avatar: The Last Airbender as a great example to use. That's a big series that is tons of fun. I mean, just because it's an end of the world apocalyptic war doesn't mean that people aren't making jokes and having silly stuff going on along the way. So yeah, I definitely know that it's fun. It has a sense of humor. There's jokes in it. People act like idiots, and then things get dark at the end. But there's plenty of jokes along the way.
But it's not Game of Thrones. It's geared towards a young adult audience, right?
Yeah. It's a young adult novel, but whether it's for young adults or adults, I just think that stories should have some sense of lightheartedness to it. Things shouldn't be relentlessly bleak. I mean, obviously, some stories call for that, but I like to have a story that you can have fun with and enjoy, and it's not just relentlessly dark. And all my stories are like that. There's always jokes and comedic side characters to lighten the load, because I don't want to write something that's relentlessly bleak, let alone read it. Not that there aren't dark moments, of course. There's very dark moments along the way, but there's also jokes too.
I just say, Derek, I'm very proud of you, man. Good on you.
Thank you.
Yes, very good. Very good job, dude.
Yeah.
It was a lot of work.
Yeah, God. And I'm sure if anyone has any other questions, please just hit Derek up by email or by his X account, and he'll respond to you. So, or send him checks in the mail. He likes that too, right?
Yeah.
And which way, we should close our doors then. If you don't want to have anything else to say, Derek, it's up to you, man.
Nope, I'm good. Thank you. And thank you very much for giving me a chance to spotlight my book like this.
Hey, don't be. Yeah. Keri, you have any last words?
No, go buy Derek's book if you're interested in stuff like that. Yeah, I'm not, like I said, alcohol.
Yeah, fair enough.
And like I said,
it's good. It's fun. It's fun so far.
The ebook is going to be free from Sunday to Thursday of this week, March 24 to March 28. Free ebook. Right. Reviews, please.
Yes, and if go ahead, Keri.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's a fun story so far, and that was what I could get through before the THC kicked in. So yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah, if I do my job, this episode will drop at midnight on Sunday night, which is tomorrow, because we're recording on March 23rd, Saturday, so in the afternoon.
So it will drop when the book becomes free.
Yes, hopefully.
Yep.
And speaking of which, this show is available on most podcast platforms and on YouTube for free. Yeah, imagine that. Subscribe today. For social media, we're on Instagram and X. If you wish to contact us directly, our email address is management@scifipubcast.space. We love hearing from our customers. And regarding social media, Keri, where can people find you?
You can, if If I'm on a social media platform, you can find me at Keri Blackfire42. That's Keri Blackfire42.
And you're still involved with other podcasts, I take it?
Yes, I am still involved with Cape Chronicles, Enter the Dojo, and occasionally DC Talk over on the Random Chatter Network. But DC Talk has been kind of sporadic since there's not a lot of DC news and television and movie news, and well, it's just me running that one at the moment. So yeah.
Fair enough. Podcasting is a great hobby, but there's a lot of work involved.
Yes.
And I give the Random Chatter Network a follow because they have a lot of great shows over there, and
they
do
know
a lot of the folks over there. So
they do. Yep.
Derek, do you have any writing projects on the go you should want to talk about right now? We have another hour.
So my Twitter handle is at Derek J. Beebe. My website is derekbeebe.com. And the book is called The Secret Apprentice, book 1 of the Dynasty series by Derek Beebe. And it is available exclusively on Amazon as an ebook, as a paperback, and it's free on Kindle Unlimited. And it will be free Sunday through Thursday of this week. Right. Please leave a review.
Excellent. For Randall Graham, because we've dropped his name several times this podcast, he is my PhD supervisor, and he's also a novelist. He has the Before Life trilogy, and he's working on some other novels right now. Give him a follow. He's on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, at Randall_Graham. He's also a full professor, tenure for many, many, many years at Western Law at the University of Western Ontario, or Western University. They kind of have two different names nowadays. With me, I'm on X at Joel_Welch. So my last name is spelled W-E-L-C-H. It's closing time. Take care. Please make it home safe. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Bye.
And I'm so proud of you, Derek. Good night, man.
Thank you.
Cast logo by Julian. Copyrighted Joe Welch. Listen responsibly. And we can't wait for your next visit to our fine establishment. Cheers.